Hey there, and welcome to another Tudor Minute from the Renaissance English History Podcast, your mostly weekly dose of all things related to medieval and Renaissance England. So today I'm going to talk to you about underwear because getting dressed in medieval and Renaissance England in the 16th century, which is Renaissance, not medieval. Please don't leave a comment saying the 16th century isn't medieval. Like, I just misspoke. So getting dressed in the 16th century was really difficult, especially if you were a noble woman. So if you were just a poor woman, it didn't really matter that much. It wasn't that difficult. But if you were dressing to go to court or to be snazzy, to be noticed, to be fashionable, it was really hard. You didn't just kind of roll out of bed and put on your clothes that you left on the floor the night before. I never do that. So it was a process. And there was a lot that you would wear underneath your clothes. And also, if you think about the fashions of the time period, it was really geometric. So really tiny, tiny waists, bigger shoulders with poofy sleeves, and tiny, tiny waists, and then you poof out again on the sides. And so it took a lot to achieve this look. And men, too, had the poofy pants, poofy trousers. Poof. I like saying poof. So there was a lot of work involved in getting this poofiness. And a lot of the underwear was worn by both men and women. But here's a list of all the different things you could wear if you were a woman getting dressed. Oh, and I should say, I think last November I did an episode on fashion and sumptuary laws. So I talked about part of this, but it was more about the actual outfits themselves and jewelry and, kind of what you would wear like that. So if you want to get a more complete, deeper dive into Tudor underwear and clothing, you can go to englandcast.com and check out the archive and listen to that episode on fashion and sumptuary laws. So here's a list of things you could wear if you were a woman getting dressed. The first thing you would wear that probably all women would wear was it was like a shift, and it was just a slip kind of thing. It was made of linen, and it would go down to like your knee, and it had a couple of purposes. The first thing it would do is you would wear it under a dress, and it would keep the fabric from scratching you so much of the dress that you were wearing. And then the other reason why you would wear it, especially if you were a poorer woman, it meant you didn't have to wash your clothes as often. You would just wash your shift because the shift would collect your body odor. And so you wouldn't have to wash your clothing that often. You would just wash the shift. So you might change your shift every couple of weeks. No, it wasn't that often, or it wasn't that far apart. Maybe once a week or something, you would change your shift and wash it. So that was your shift. And of course, then you would wear stockings in the winter. And I should say a note on temperature. It sounds like a lot of clothing, and it was a lot of clothing. And in the summer, you would be hot. But we also have to remember that the temperature in the 16th century was a lot cooler than it is now. Everywhere in Europe, there was the kind of mini ice age going on. Sorry, I still have this cold that I had last week. It's just hanging on. So there was this little mini ice age, and so the temperature was a lot cooler. So you still, in August in London, you weren't going to be comfortable, but you wouldn't be absolutely dying the way we would be today. So you had your stockings on, and the next thing you had on was a corset. Now, men wore corsets too, not just women. So equal opportunity, inability to breathe. And of course, that would tie really, really tight around your waist. And if you were a woman, it would poof your top part up and create a pleasing shape. And then you would also wear a kirtle. A kirtle was a skirt you would wear underneath your main skirt. It was an underskirt. You would wear a bodice. A bodice was a vest, was laced up really, really, really tight in the front, and it would cover the upper part of your body. And sometimes that would be visible as well, so it might be snazzy. And so that was your bodice. You would wear on the bottom a farthingale. And a farthingale is kind of like a hoop skirt, but it didn't have the hoop on the bottom the way my mom's prom dress did from the late 50s, early 60s. I wore it one time for Halloween, and like you sat down and the hoop just went floop, floop, hoop. So it was kind of hoopy, but it wasn't actually a hoop. It had whalebone up at your hips, so you'd tie it up there, and it was linen with whale bones that would make you go out. And you would also wear a petticoat, and that was another kind of underskirt, and you would tie it around your waist. And you would wear a four-part. Well, the four-part was really decorated. It was a skirt that you wore that was visible. So it was kind of had, if you imagine the fashions of the time, there would be like the skirt that kind of went out, and then underneath you would see another part of the skirt that would be matchy matchy, and that was that was the four-part. And then you would also wear a necklet on your top, and it was kind of like a turtleneck. It was supposed to cover the part if you had a low necked dress, and it would cover up. So there were a lot of parts to women getting dressed. If you were a man, it wasn't quite as much. You would wear your corset, like I said, and that was, again, it had boning, and it was designed to cinch up your waist. And you would wear your shirt, and you would wear your hose, and you would, of course, wear your codpiece. I really have the sense of humor of like an 8th grade boy with codpieces. I just can't say them without laughing. I did this episode on Tudor portraits and propaganda, and I must have said codpiece like 38 times, talking about the portraits of Henry VIII. And interestingly enough, the codpiece went out of style after Henry VIII. So no men really wore the codpiece after the Tudor period. So I don't know. Nobody could compete with his look in it, I suppose. And so that's me with my 13-year-old boy sense of humor. I have a friend who listened to my podcast, and he was like, "You so said codpiece way too many times, and you giggled so much each time." I don't know. Sorry. I got sidetracked. Okay, so with that, thanks for watching the Tudor Minute from the Renaissance English History Podcast. And if you want to learn more and listen to the archives and check out the shows that I mentioned here, the one about fashion and portraits, you can go to Englandcast, England, englandcast.com, and I will talk to you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.